With the King of Fighters 15 on the way, or maybe it's already out since YouTube likes to share my speculation videos the most many months after the game has already been released, I want to talk about some characters that should return. SNK fighting games have such a rich history that there are a lot of characters that need to be omitted on each new King of Fighters roster to give both old and new characters a chance to return. However, SNK always does a good job at bringing back some lesser seen characters and forgotten fan favorites in new King of Fighters games. Yeah, I mean, we got Hua Jai back in King of Fighters 13, so anything's plausible. This video will go over established characters that I'd like to see return in the King of Fighters 15 that we don't always get on King of Fighters rosters. I'll be picking from characters that were in older King of Fighters games, or ones that only showed up in the Fatal Fury or Art of Fighting series, since that's where most of the characters come from if they did not originate in King of Fighters. I could even be so bold to look at the rosters of Samurai Showdown or Bariki 1 for options, since we've seen characters from those games appear in King of Fighters before, but I think we have a good selection with the other games. The only other restriction I'll set for myself is no characters that appeared in King of Fighters 14, since I want to give a chance to characters that we haven't seen in a while. Now, let's crown my top 10 characters that should return in the King of Fighters 15. Number 10, Hotaru. Hotaru is a character who is simply a nice person and a joy to be around. She brings her pet to the fight. That's adorable. Isn't that one of the many reasons we also love Terry Bogard? She's not really happy to fight, but she's happy to exist. I've always liked her take on Kung Fu. She's not very forceful with each hit, like she's using just enough strength to defeat you, no excess pain needed. This is known as internal Kung Fu, which is less about physical power and more about mentality and chi, which is seen in Hotaru's unspecified energy ball. Her fighting style is similar to characters like Zhao Yu or Chun-Li. She shares some stances with Zhao Yu and some kick philosophy with Chun-Li. Hotaru won't go as crazy with the kicks as Chun-Li does, no one can, but she will utilize some of the various flips and jumps that Chun-Li incorporates into her moveset. I also like how Hotaru does a dive kick. It's not so much a kick as it is a power knee. She learned that one from Captain Falcon, or maybe Captain Falcon learned that from her. Since she premiered in Garo Mark of the Wolves, that generally lowers her possibility of being in King of Fighters, mainly because Garo takes place 10 years after Fatal Fury, and King of Fighters occurs before that time skip, so adding in Garo characters messes with the timeline a bit, even though King of Fighters technically takes place in an alternate timeline. Or maybe I'm just overthinking things. Really, it shouldn't matter that much. We've seen other Garo characters appear in King of Fighters in the past, and it was a grand time. They just made Rock Howard DLC so we avoided the story. We even saw Hotaru's brother Gato on a roster, so it's only fair to let the sister have a chance. Hotaru did appear in the PlayStation 2 port of a previous King of Fighters, but since it was non-canonical, I'd like to see the official return of Hotaru. Put her on a team with Gato, and we can have some family drama plotlines on why everyone in Hotaru's family abandoned her. How could you all do that? She's so nice. Come for Hotaru's gameplay, stay for the tragic storylines. Number 9, Carmen Cole. This character was from Art of Fighting 3, and that's a game I don't hear people talk about much. I always thought it was cool how it was Robert Garcia's story, even putting him as the default character on the select screen instead of Ryo. This game was like what Garo was to Fatal Fury minus the time skip. The roster was all new characters except the main characters Robert and Ryo, and basically we haven't heard from any of the new characters since. Kasumi was the only one to make it into future games, and I kinda see why. A lot of these other designs are either generic or pretty out there. That being said, I find them all appealing. This guy's got a bird in his backpack. Of the mix of characters though, I want Carmen to be the surprise pick. He works for Robert's family and is essentially their top bodyguard or undefined agent. The point is, he's a nice guy who's also kind of mysterious. That's ultimately what I like about him. Since he has that man of mystery look, his attacks can essentially be anything. His canonical attacks are swift hand motions and kicks, but he also has a simple yet cool combo ender, where he jumps on his opponent to punch them square in their face. You know, for good measure. He reminds me of Q from Street Fighter, where he postures himself like he's just going to take a simple stroll, but then he can wail on you if you come too close to him. There's just so much potential with assassin-like motions or even hidden weapons with him. Even though it's not the most dynamic moveset based on the only game we've seen him in, I find the allure of this dapper fellow enough to make him worth giving another chance to. Number 8. Mr. Karate. Mr. Karate is the persona of Takuma Sakazaki, who is a pretty frequent roster member in the King of Fighters series, along with being a notable Art of Fighting character. However, Takuma's appearances became less frequent as newer King of Fighters games came out, including no spot in King of Fighters XIV. Still, of all the characters that are going to be on this list, I feel like he's the character that we see the most often. He may have even been announced after I released this video since he's a popular guy. However, I don't need regular Takuma to return. I want to see his persona Mr. Karate, where he puts on the darker gi and most importantly, the Tengu mask. I've already spoken about him in 3 other videos, so to summarize this persona, Takuma had to work for the big villain under duress in the first Art of Fighting. He hid his identity with this mask, and then when he was free, he thought having a mysterious persona was kinda fun, so he donned the mask from time to time if it was for a good cause. Even when Mr. Karate and Takuma have been separate playable characters in the same game, they have variations on their movesets so they play differently. Sometimes Takuma will have new moves and Mr. Karate will use Takuma's old moves or vice versa. The main moves I'd want to return for Mr. Karate are from King of Fighters XIII, being his invisible fireballs and counter teleport. Those really made him feel transcendent in how he's mastered karate. How'd he get the fireballs to be invisible? Though I would also like to see a bit of the silly Mr. Karate return, like when he was non-playable in arcade mode endings. He would monologue to his kids about his mysterious power as if he's a superhero, and they'd respond, "Yeah, that's great, Dad." I feel you could add some of those into his intro dialogue or with some of his animations. I know when he's playable he drops the humor, but why not have the best of both worlds in this case? He could do his big super moves and then relax a bit afterwards, just so long as we have that super death punch attack from King of Fighters XIII. That was one of my favorite super moves. Number 7. Rugelrnstein. Final bosses are cool. You know that, I know that, SNK knows that. They even made a team of them in a previous King of Fighters game. But SNK also knows moderation, where they introduce us to a final boss for a game or two, and then pack them away for a while. Or forever. I completely understand and believe in that idea. That being said, why not bring one back out for nostalgia's sake? Of every King of Fighters boss, I feel like Rugelrnstein has that staying power that made him the most memorable boss in the series. In the story, he was just a shady businessman who got some of that demonic Orochi power and wanted more. He ultimately was just a smaller pawn in a bigger plotline, but despite only being our introduction to the true terrors of Orochi and his followers, something about Rugel's design and moveset stuck out with me and many other players to make him such an iconic boss. To some, he may even be the most iconic boss in King of Fighters. And I'm not gonna lie, he's what I think of when you mention King of Fighters final bosses. Might have to thank Capcom for that one, for giving him such a big role in Capcom vs SNK 2. For such a notable character though, SNK hasn't brought him out since 2002. I understand giving the spotlight to other plot lines, but with it being nearly 2 decades since he's last gotten a chance to fight, why not bring him back to celebrate his legacy? Geese Howard had the same iconic final boss status and was on break since 2002 until King of Fighters XIV, and Tekken 7. I think Rugel could be the next surprise playable boss in this game like Geese was in the last game. Just put Rugel off to the side of the plot like Geese was in King of Fighters XIV, or if you want the roster to stay fresh and new, make Rugel DLC so he doesn't interfere with anything on release. Rugel has always been one of those characters that's just fun to get your hands on since he overkills every attack. His moveset is more for power and flashiness rather than completely unique attacks. We've seen moves like this before, but still, your opponent will not only feel the scorn of Orochi when fighting Rugel, but they will feel the power of every fighter Rugel has had the pleasure of copying and potentially killing. Number 6, Junhoon. I'm not sure why Jun hasn't appeared since King of Fighters 2003. I understand wanting to take a break, but for a while, he seemed like he was Kim's right-hand man. He felt like such a fixture of the series for a few years, I almost couldn't imagine a game without him. But here we are, almost 2 decades since his last appearance, and there's been no sight of the hanging leg man. He's got a fun personality, where he's serious in the ring, but has unexpected less serious interests, like pop idols. He canonically wasn't in a game once because he tripped and broke his arm when chasing after pop idol Athena just to get her autograph. He's kind of a lovable goof, but he also takes off his sunglasses without touching them, so he has enough badass in him to cover up some of his flaws. His moveset is solid, where I don't think there's anything to change or add to it. He's more of a technical character with 3 stances. Besides his default stance, he has the hawk and eagle stances that allow him to fly like the bird that he wants to be. I also always found it cool how he never used his arms for anything. Not only does he have the fancy footwork, but he points out how he's not even using his arms by putting them behind his back. So he has a cool pose, cool fighting style, cool sunglasses, and cool hair. Sounds like more than enough reasons to bring him back. Number 5, Bob Wilson. SNK dabbles in the style of capoeira from time to time. In the first Fatal Fury, Richard Meyer was an opponent, setting the stage for capoeira to be a staple in the series. And in King of Fighters, we got Momoko, who has excellent fluid animations on all of her kicks and a soul full of sugar since she looks way too happy when she does anything. But between those characters, we got Bob Wilson, Richard Meyer's protege in both capoeira and restaurant ownership. Richard retired after the first Fatal Fury storyline and wanted Bob to take his place in these tournaments. Bob was in all the Fatal Fury games from 3 to Real Bout 2 and seemed like he was on top of the world with all these appearances. He got to kick ass at the tournaments and still had time to work at the restaurant afterwards in arcade endings. However, his fame was dwindling. He had no presence in Garo Mark of the Wolves, which is fine, that was meant for the new generation anyway, but once we re-entered the Fatal Fury time period in the King of Fighters series, Bob was nowhere to be seen. Well, that's not true. He appeared in arcade endings and backgrounds throughout the King of Fighters series, repping the Pow Pow Cafe, the chain that Richard founded, so it appears Bob went the way of Richard and just stopped fighting. I mean, hey, that's fine if he wanted to focus on fine dining instead, but couldn't he relive his fighting days in just one tournament? He hasn't made a single King of Fighters roster, and I think that should change in King of Fighters 15. Come on, just one comeback wouldn't hurt. His moveset is what you'd expect from a capoeira practitioner, utilizing flurries of kicks. My favorite move is the head spin where his legs cover a full 360 degrees. He also has a mean headbutt. Maybe he could also take some cues from Momoko, since she had some flexible moves that Bob never used. Or maybe SNK could just bring back Momoko and Richard alongside Bob to create Team Capoeira. And if Bob and Richard are truly out of the fighting business now, at least bring back Momoko for some capoeira action. Not only can she fight with her legs, but she can fire a hand laser. Who doesn't love a good old giant hand laser? Number 4, Hinako. Hinako is a lightweight girl that fights with sumo wrestling. I think that's all you need to know on why she's so great. That is the ultimate unexpected fighting style for this girl's weight class and appearance, and I think it works well. I find sumo fighters to be fun in fighting games, but they can blend together in how similar they need to be. They usually emulate real-life sumo wrestlers, being large, heavy-set men who fight with stomps, slaps, and grappling techniques that use the momentum of their body to push the opponent away. I enjoy characters like Taka Arashi from Virtua Fighter or Gon Ryu from Tekken, but their personalities set them apart from each other rather than their differences in sumo technique. That being said, E Honda can fly through the air like a bird, so he'll always be the most innovative sumo wrestler of his weight class. The thing about Hinako though, is she has many of the same moves as the other sumo wrestlers, but it feels so different when coming from her. Understandably, her attacks just seem so much faster than those of your average sumo wrestler, where she can overwhelm you with her sumo skills. It's less about how each slap hits like a truck, and more about how they all assault you so quickly you don't know how to deal with it. Even her giant step makes an impact despite her size. Her passion to defy the odds and become a successful sumo wrestler is both entertaining in how over the top she can get, but also somewhat inspiring. She goes to show us that if you truly learn the proper techniques of your fighting style and fight with a clear mind while watching every move of your opponent, you can take down foes of any size. Number 3, Chizuru. I've discussed her on my characters that fight with mirrors and my sub-boss lists, but I'm happy to praise Chizuru more. She's always getting screwed over by the main plot. In her first appearance, she didn't even get to be the final boss of her own tournament after it was crashed by the big villains. Later, she got mind-controlled by some Orochi followers to put on a new tournament in King of Fighters 2003, and then she's not even in games after that, but her Yata mirror that she uses to seal away evil and fight with was stolen from her by Ash Crimson, so she was getting bad luck when she was off screen too. Chizuru deserves to finally catch a break. She got the mirror back after Ash's mission was complete in King of Fighters 13, and was shown in a King of Fighters 14 ending with Kyo and Iori, so we know she's still ready to join the fight. Maybe King of Fighters 15 can be the first game where she's not falling behind some villain or anti-hero, and King of Fighters 98 doesn't count since that didn't have a story. This could also give us a chance to see the resurgence of Team Sacred Treasures, giving us another excuse to see more cool canonical Kyo-Iori team-ups. Chizuru used to be a sub-boss, so let's treat her return like she's a legend. Now that Chizuru has the mirror back, she'll basically have the same moveset as she did in the past. She uses the mirror to summon clones of herself, or maybe that's the spirit of her sister. The story's ambiguous. Perhaps she could learn from how Noob Saibot in Mortal Kombat evolved with his Shadow Man attacks, and have some clone attacks that bounce the opponent for combo extension. Her clones are good as projectiles or combo enders usually, so it seems like a natural progression. And of course, her main attacks are elegant and a bit sassy. They look kind of like dancing, and her outro actually is dancing, which, as I've said in previous videos, shows that not only does she bring a mirror to the fight, but she also brings the funk.
I want to learn to dance like that.
Number 2, Shen Wu. Shen Wu can fit into any King of Fighters game on any team. He just likes to punch things. He doesn't care who it's with as long as there's an opportunity. He's generally teamed up with heroes though. He's not a bad guy, just a violent one. He's rough, but he'll still act like a human being if he needs to. He's aware the fight has to be agreed upon by both sides, or at least warranted. He'll have a simple conversation with you if you want to do that instead. His fighting style is everything I love about fighting games. He just barrels through all attacks. His fists are on fire. I'm not sure if that's literal or just for effect, but the only way to withstand them is to punch as hard as he does, or simply take it and endure. Not even projectiles can stop him. He just punches them out of existence, and since he gets so worked up when fighting, his battle spirit manifests itself. Careful, or else he'll burn you with the intensity of his rage, or of his excitement, or of his, well, any of his emotions are strong enough to create this energy. When choosing number 1 on speculation lists like these, I simply have to choose my favorite character that's not guaranteed to be in the game. Not sure how popular this fighter is, but she's one of my favorite SNK characters behind the likes of Terry and Mai. Number 1. Jeanette. This character is awesome. Her backstory is that she's a pirate, but not your standard sail the seven seas pirate. She's more of a pirate for fun. She's from a wealthy, luxurious family, but was bored of just having everything handed to her in life, so she thought it would be a great idea to become a pirate randomly. Instead of asking her parents for money that they would be happy to give her, she gathers her pirate crew to steal from the rich for the same result. She's just live-action role-playing at this point, since and she only lives the parts of the pirate lifestyle that she likes. She has the Jolly Roger dress and a pirate tattoo, but I don't see her roughing it out on the streets or in the middle of the ocean. Though maybe I should give her more credit about sailing the seven seas. She did invest in a pirate ship that can transform into a submarine that she bought with her parents' money. I guess she cut off her parents after she did this. Jeanette is fine with most ships. She's just against modern ships that run on diesel, as her bio states as her major dislike. Her bio also states that she likes Eurodance. I knew there were more reasons why I liked her. I wonder if she plays Captain Jack when she's out at sea. Her crew members are amateur pirates too, forming a group called the Lillian Knights. Jeanette actually cares for this crew like family, showing she still takes the pirating that she participates in seriously. Despite her unorthodox pirating methods, she's a smart tactician, planning heists and finding ways to use a fighting tournament to get treasure, aka the prize money, aka me booty. Of course, to enter these tournaments, she has to have a plan to fight, and she's actually trained in French kickboxing, sort of. She calls it Lillian Knight Arts, but it takes most of its cues from French kickboxing, only more flashy, and she blows kisses while doing it. Kisses that cause pain, of course. She can also use the wind to form cutting blades of doom, or just mild pain. They don't look that lethal. But my favorite part of her fighting style is where she clearly improvises. Between the telegraphed kicks, she does a few backhanded slaps, or she'll just beat the crap out of you with her high heel. Overall, this character is just a whole lot of fun, and that's why I wish we would see her more often. Not sure when she'll sail back into our lives, but Bon Jeanette certainly rose to the top of my wish list for the next King of Fighters.
Future victory!
Now, what did you think? Which choices did you agree with, and which SNK fighters would you add from your own wish list? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.